Okay. Hello, mic check. Francis, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. So we are now on the sixth episode. Can you believe that? It's like we already covered the first half of the year of
Yeah.
2023. Yeah, that's so fast right there. So today is July 2, but of course, like we mentioned, I think a few weeks ago, this will be the discussion for June 2023. So this is the June 2023 episode of the Book Lovers Club, the sixth one. And then today we'll be talking horror. By the way, before I continue, Franz, so I just got a message from our university. I think they're not renewing their Zoom stuff. So right
Mm,
now, yeah, we're enjoying, like, I think UP is like paying for some sort of only like recording, but if
yep.
you're using like the Zoom thing for free, you can only do video recording for I think up to 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think starting July 9, unfortunately, we're gonna lose the privilege. And knowing our episodes so far, we usually go beyond the 45-minute mark. So I think next time we're gonna be using some other platform. I think UP still has the Google Meet, so I think yeah, we can try that one.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is still can still record beyond 45 minutes. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I'm kind of familiar with the Zoom environment already. But yeah, what can you do? I don't know. I think that the reason was like it got expensive or something like that, so they decided not to renew
Really.
it on the accounts of having alternative video conferencing platforms. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why Zoom decided to increase their price. I think yeah, they felt that this we can make more money out of this, or I don't know. But yeah, so unfortunately, this will the first half of 2023. It's gonna be all Zoom. This is gonna be the last one. The next one, the start of the second half, will be on a different recording platform. All right. But
Yep.
yeah, as we mentioned, let me introduce Franz very quickly the work that we're gonna discuss here. So I have in here a copy. So this is typically anthologized in a lot of collections of this author. So this is by H.P. Lovecraft. The one I'm showing here is of course an anthology known as Necronomicon, which is of course named after, I think, yeah, in his mythos, Lovecraft Chan tales. There's like an Arabic author there, which is of course a fictional one, who wrote the book called the Necronomicon, which H.P. Lovecraft keeps on how do you say this referring to in his works. So this is an anthology. I think there are a lot of different anthologies. In fact, I mentioned, Franz, last time I was supposed to buy the leather bound thing. Unfortunately, when I went to Fully Book, it was like sold out in the fully booked, and then they have another one, a thinner one, and I think it's called some stories or something like that, like a few stories of HP Lovecraft, but it's a cheap version, like I believe it's only like around 150 pesos or something like that. It's really cheap, and then it contains a few short stories, but I didn't buy it because like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna buy the leather one in the future, so I'm just gonna hold out for that edition. But in any case, he has a lot of he's very, how do you say this? He is known for a lot of fiction, but to be honest, this is the first story that I read from him. How about you, Franz? While I look for the specific story that we're reading, have you heard him before? Have you tried some of his stories before? H.P. Lovecraft.
Um, yeah, there uh HP Lovecraft is we I think I before I read any of his works, I've already seen it on most other media. They Many of them I think HP Lovecraft is like one of the greats in
Yeah.
the whole, and many people really reference it like uh I think he was one of the pioneers of the cosmic horror, that's
Yes.
um horror stuff similar to his are more referred to as Cthulhu like, or
Yeah. The Cthulhu. Yes.
yeah.
The Cthulhu mythos. Yeah. I think yeah.
Yeah.
I like usually you hear his like I've heard, like, for example, definitely Cthulhu in like some video games. In fact, there's there's a video game called The Darkest Dungeon that is heavily influenced by the monsters conjured by H.P. Lovecraft, and then
Yeah.
I think some of his as the terminologies that introduced in there, Cthulhu in particular, are also very rampant in like metal music, metal
Yes.
works. I believe like there's an Iced Earth song that contains, I think it's even called the Call of Cthulhu or something,
Yeah.
which he wrote. But yeah, the specific story that we're gonna talk about is of course this one. I hope it's clear. It's The Color Out of Space. Okay, and I think this is one of his famous stories. I'm pretty sure any anthology that you find of H.P. Lovecraft, you'll find this story, even in the cheap one that I mentioned, the one that's like 100 plus pesos only in fully book. The Color Out of Space is there. So I chose to discuss this, even though I believe this is not his famous story. I think probably his most famous story would be the Call of Cthulhu, right? Because that established the
Yeah.
Cthulhu mythos. But yeah, I mentioned last time I chose that because in one of the, if you look at like some of the best the definitive horror stories or something like that, the Color Out of Space always pops out. And in fact, H.P. Lovecraft himself on record mentioned that this is his personal favorite among his stories, the Color Out of Space, right? So that's why I was curious. But of course, in fact, after reading this, I also read Dagon. I read the Call of Cthulhu, just to have some point of comparison, like a sampling of what he did, right? So yeah, so we're gonna be talking about this because this is fairly on the long side. I pressed the next page and so I think from another story. But why don't you give France a very short, non-spoilery summary of how you would solve this work to someone who hasn't heard of H.P. Lovecraft, or maybe who has heard of him a little bit. What can you say about this short story? Non-spoiler version.
Um, for non-spoiler, yeah, I think um, yeah, I'd say this is from the great H.P. Lovecraft, and yeah, we introduce it as one of his greater works. And
Mm-hmm.
if they love horror, I think they would enjoy this. It's on, yeah, it kind of borders something like of a science fiction, since there were like um people from the university involved to investigate the matter. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's also quite a short read also, and it gives that heavy setting feeling of dread after you read it. And if um if you're one of those people who get nightmares right after watching or reading something, it'd really be up all night.
Yeah. I think we really miss it, Franz. Like when I mentioned this, and then afterwards, I was like looking around. Uh, there's supposed to be like a lot of films that were made attempting to capture this horror, but the most recent one, we should probably watch this, but unfortunately we can't discuss it anymore because I haven't seen it. There's a 2019 film starring Nicolas Cage that is based on this one, and the title is of course Color Out of Space, which
Yeah,
is
I saw
you heard
bits
this?
of that.
I didn't
I
see.
saw
I saw some
bit,
some snapshots or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah, but yeah. I haven't seen it. Like I've heard, like I look at the history. A lot of people attempted this, and in fact, like one of the best renditions is that I think there's like I think it's a German. There's like a German indie film where what he did was he made the entire thing black and white, and then to
yeah, I
really
think
emphasize, and then the color that was alluded to in the story was like he used like a different shade that is not grayish or black and white in the film, which works really work to the film's effect. But yeah, the new one with Nicolas Cage, I think use like something like violet or magenta or something.
it's violet. It's full of
Yeah,
violet.
something like violet. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, we haven't seen it. Looks modernish to me. I don't know, like
It
the
sucks.
right
Even
the
just
setting.
watching few of I just skipped through it. Uh,
That is
Many
it
there
modern?
are
The setting looks wrong.
Yeah, the setting is very wrong.
And the casting of Nicolas Cage, I don't know, feels suspect to me. I don't know which character he was there. Was he
I think he was
the
the farmer, but
he was the farmer, the one that
he
owned the land. Okay, okay,
yeah, he was the one who owned the land, but
yeah,
in the movie I think they were just they bought the house, so they moved in rather than them being there since it started. So
yeah.
it's kinda far out because it it doesn't yeah, it doesn't give much weight to the reason why the farmer chose to stay at his house, because if
Mm,
you only moved in, I think you'd give it up right away rather than the farmer
yeah, exactly.
staying
Yeah,
there, because that was their ancestral land.
yeah.
So
Although, yeah, now that I think about it, there was actually a, how do you say this, a sci-fi thriller film. I think it's called Knowing, that also starred Nicolas Cage. So yeah, now that I think about it, maybe he can do, some like that kind of, because usually you see Nicolas Cage in, some like a blockbuster Hollywood stuff, like National Treasure or Face Off, or things like that. But yeah, I think, yeah, I do remember, yeah, he has like a horror stuff, Knowing.
it's
So
he
yeah,
was
maybe
also
maybe
a
I'm gonna watch
vampire.
it. Yeah, maybe it's worth checking out. Yeah, but so I think, yeah, so it's good, friends, that you mentioned that it's sci-fi, because this one, I looked it up, was first published in The Amazing Stories by Hugo Gernsback, which is of course the Hugo, where I think the Hugo Awards are in science fiction are named after. He had this like some sort of pulp magazine in the early 1900s called The Amazing Stories. It's where this one appeared, right?
Yeah,
Which is really surprising, because Amazing Stories were, although not, exclusively sci-fi, it's, mostly sci-fi. If you look at the
HP.
stories that
Well,
came there, it's mostly science fiction. And I believe, yeah, this was written, let me check it very quickly. Was it 1920s or something like that? So very, I think we have to, it's 1927. So it was written 1927. So we have to keep that in mind, especially, we'll talk about the very, how do you say this? Controversial background of H.P. Lovecraft and his views about race and stuff like that. But yeah, he wrote this. It has a, I think that's why it got accepted, because it had a tone of science, which is funny, because one of the last horror that we discussed, which is The Jaunt by Stephen King. We mentioned he also submitted that to a sci-fi magazine, but got rejected, which is funny to me, because that felt more sci-fi than The Color Out of Space. So
yeah, it might have something to do with the time or era.
yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe during that era, a few mentions like in here, right? Like it was like, yeah, there were like some university professors and stuff, but like the mention of sci-fi is pretty, yeah. But we're gonna discuss that later.
Because it's about
It's
space.
pretty, yeah, pretty light. Yeah, it's not really something, but maybe, yeah, the Amazing Stories were a bit lenient during the time. But yeah, I think we need to discuss this. So I think I told Francis, well, last week while I was reading this, I was when I gave this to Francis, I was still in the first half, so I was still in that part. And then how do you say this, after that, I also told Francis that I wanted to try, some other works by HP Lovecraft. So I tried this thing, Dagon, which is it stood out to me, because that's like one a weapon in Dota, right?
Yeah, that good.
That that's the like the blue, the is it the blue or the red one, the
Red,
magic one that you buy,
the
the
red
red,
one.
right? The one that you click and then it fires like a very strong laser or something like that,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, that. So I remember, yeah, he has this sa Dagon, yeah, but yeah, within the story, it's actually like named after a fish god of some kind
yeah,
in
fish
some
god.
other culture, yeah. And then I also read the Call of Cthulhu, but like we said, we chose the Color Out of Space, because Lovecraft himself, how do you say this, made it, he considers it one of his best short stories. But one of the, so like usually in how they say this, in the way they promote, like, you should read this short story, you should read that. Usually they give you like blurbs, right, of like what it is about, like, how come it became part of this collection, like I mentioned, France, right? I saw this in a list, and then usually they explain, this is scary because it's about like this, it's about like that. In the Color of Outer Space, what they did is that they just like wrote like a quote from the passage, right? They didn't even sell what it is about. They
Yeah.
just wrote, the passage from but Lovecraft, and I would say that it was very like fascinating reading that. It's as if like, and in fact, I soon discovered, France, they have like a term for that kind of a prose. They call it Lovecraftian prose, where it's like, I don't know, like H.P. Lovecraft like has like he probably like look at a dictionary and then collected all the words that evokes horror, right? And then when you read his stuff, like there's no mistaking that it's a horror, right? Like it's a work of suspense, it's a work of thriller, because the way he writes, it's very loaded, right?
It's
Like
very dark.
I know, right? The creepiness really emanates, even though, yeah, as we're gonna discuss, it's a cosmic horror. And in fact, Lovecraft himself mentioned one of the reasons why he wrote this story in particular, because he got during that time, the horror in the Gothic era of fiction, he got tired of horror that is, the typical ones are either like monsters or supernatural ghosts, right? And
Yeah.
then he got tired of that because he said that, yeah, these are okay, good, like scary stuff, but they are so human, right? Like ghosts, you have ghosts, or you have vampire, or things like this. They're very human, and so he wanted something that is, I don't know, like unseen, or stuff like that. So I think, with that, maybe we can already talk, France, about, maybe you can give now the non-spoilery. So that's like how we're gonna sell it. If you haven't read it, this is the uh portion of the video where you stop and then you read it yourself. It's a fairly nice read, and then now we're gonna discuss it in depth. I think, yeah, that the how do you say this, the synopsis is a bit, it's you can tell it very shortly, but the way Lovecraft writes, he's really able to expand it. But can you give us, France, a very short synopsis of what it is about, with the spoiler and stuff?
Yeah, so it starts, the narrator was some kind of a trader or a
Yeah,
lawyer, I think. So
or something, yeah, like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
he went to he went to a place, I think it's around
It's
Massachusetts, or
Yeah, it's Arkham. I looked it up. It's actually a real place. Like, it jumped to me because that's Batman, right?
yeah,
Like,
Batman,
Arkham
the
is
Arkham
this is
Asylum.
exactly, this is like, oh, this is Batman stuff.
Yeah,
When I first saw it, but
maybe this is where they got the Arkham Asylum.
yeah, because it turns out to be a real place in Massachusetts. So yeah.
Okay, so when the trader or the narrator went there, he was scouting out the place, and um the there were in Arkham, there were only a few locals left. Only most of them has left the place because according to the locals, something weird happened decades ago or years ago. During there was something that happened. So uh when he got to the place, a valley called the Blasted Heath, so um he discovered that the place has become barren. Before, they said that the place was a farming community and was abundant, but now he reached there, and it was barren, and people advise him to not go to that place or even go near it. So um he became curious of that place, and no one else wanted to tell him about it. So there was this person, the where they call a crazy old man named Ami. So Ami was one of the witnesses of what happened years ago on how during that event that changed their place. So um according to Ami, that place was
Let me just show some pictures because the editions that I read there are actually like some drawings, so it's actually very
yeah,
nice.
very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, so years ago, that place there was a farmer that lived there named Nahum. So his family lived there. Then one day, uh, there was a meteorite that crashed near his place. So after discovering it, they called the experts from the university nearby. So yeah, they began testing the meteorite. So they drilled on it, tested its exterior crust, and they found out that the meteorite uh shrinks over time. Even if they isolate it, uh they found out that it will shrink to nothing. And then after further testing of the meteorite, they discover a core. There was there was a core that had strange colors, and then they tried to open it and something went out of its
Yeah,
core.
they pounded it with a hammer or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they opened it with chisel or something. Then uh after that after they cracked the core, they no longer found any significant things to discover. So they left it, and the meteorite disappeared to nothing as was its properties. And then after few days or weeks, um, Nahum discovered that there were weird things happening in his surroundings, like uh some of the plants died. There were weird things happening to the trees, and also the animals died. Um, so they thought it was poisoning. That the meteor poisoned his place. So, but after that, yeah, despite so when 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 they discovered, yeah, they what do you call this? They thought that it was poisoning. The soil was poisoned and it contaminated both the flora and fauna there. And uh, Gardener Nahum was left with a choice to farm the land that was far away from his place, because nothing grows there already. But um, there are some that uh, there were some vegetation though that before they wilted away, they exhibited the same kind of strange color as they witnessed, like the one that came from the core of the meteorite. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was also one of the discoveries they have. And also uh the crops that they grew in there were, according to them, were it doesn't have any taste or cannot be eaten. So the gardener really was hit in that. Then aside from his crops and livestock affected, slowly there were his family also got affected. Like his wife became mad. She was having like visions or like that. And um so they decided to lock themselves out. Then later on, his sons were also infected by the same madness. and they don't know what what really affected it. And then yeah, then there the Nahum or the gardener became really concerned already because the last of his sons was also experiencing that madness, and he asked uh Ami. He was also there during that time when the meteorite crashed, and uh Nahum often consulted him regarding the effects of the meteorite to his place. So the gardener Nahum became extremely concerned about his family, and often went there to consult Ami, and then Ami went there to check on the gardener and his family. So once they after Nahum visited the place, seeing how bad the situation is, he came back uh with the doctor and other those university people who went with them. So yeah, and then those during that day, they tried to uh when one of his sons went missing, the gardener said that he went to the well to fetch water. So they tried to check out the well and emptied it so that they can search the bottom, and what they found uh I mean remains of living things, including possibly one of his sons
Mm.
in there. And then they I think Ami felt something really bad because he also, upon his first visit, uh seeing Nahum's wife, the gardener's wife, he also witnessed one of strangest things. Like, when he opened the door, he saw her there, and then after a few moments, she vanished, just like what happened to the meteor, its property. So I think Ami suspecting that the well may be one of uh the well, it may be the thing, something in the well may cause this,
No
um
shit.
yeah, something in the well caused it. So they went back into the house. Then um they they witnessed that their horses outside were also became their horses outside became very frightened, and some of them managed to run off, but some died died instantly in there. Then after seeing what happened outside, they concluded that something out there preyed upon those preyed upon living beings and drew them into the well. And when when I think it was almost the morning, and yeah, the farmer was also, Nahum also met the same fate.
Mm.
They also vanished. They saw him also vanish, like his family, and then after they saw that, and so it was already nearing the light of day, they ran for their lives away from that place, and they never came back.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
then I yeah.
and when they look back to the place, everything crumbled. and disappeared like nothing. So that's how uh Ami's recollection ended.
Yeah, and then I think the lawyer decided he's not gonna.
Yeah,
He's like, I'm out of here.
yeah, you shouldn't.
Yeah, he's gonna. But yeah, the funny thing is they're gonna bury it with water, right? They're gonna make it like a some sort of reservoir. Yeah,
Yeah, they were planning to make it into a reservoir. So yeah, imagine if it get approved.
yeah. But I think yeah, maybe I'll add. I think yeah, when you mentioned like Nahum after the meteor hit, I think initially there were like some blissful moments where Nahum was reveling at the fact that like they become like a news item, right? Because
Yeah,
it's the farm of Nahum where the meteor hit, and then people were like, that's I know that guy. And then I think yeah, initially he noticed that the vegetables were still big, right? Like I mean, initially they were bigger than usual, but then he discovered that
yeah,
yes, they were bigger, but then they were inedible.
dishes.
Yeah, you can't eat them. Yeah, and I think yeah, the last part also was is very fascinating because I remember, I think when they were running with Amy, I remember like there's a scene where he looked back and then the color like the titular color out from space like I think went out from the well, but then there's like a tiny one that like that wasn't able to escape that like came back down.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, there was like that, and so I think yeah, that's the reason why there's still Ami was still afraid after all is said and done because even though like the color like shoot up, there's still some stuff that got left, and then I think it also affected him even if he wasn't there. He was like he was in close contact with like you said with the wife, and then he saw Nahum before he disintegrated, and then yeah that's I think yeah it did something to his sanity as well. Yeah, but I
yeah.
think yeah, so that's yeah the color out of space. So I think yeah maybe we talk first, Franz, about the thing that they call the Lovecraftian prose. Before we actually go there, let me just comment. That I think I find this nickname to be very cool. Like and the fact that it later on went to create this entire mythos. And then they call it Lovecraftian. Like you can imagine if he's I don't know if he's named something like I don't know something generic like or his family name is something I don't know like, let's say Smith,
Myth.
right, or Smithson, Smithsonian, like I don't know, it doesn't have, or maybe I'm just speaking from hindsight, but it doesn't have you know what I mean. It doesn't have the
Yeah,
same gravity as Lovecraft, right? Like I mean,
yeah. But
it's
if you hear the name the first time and you don't know his
yeah,
background, yeah, you'd think it would just be like
I don't some
the
like
the novel.
romance
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like Lovecraft, right? Like he should have been like a romance writer or
yeah.
a drama writer, right?
Romance
But
novelist. You'd
yeah,
think that that would be Jen.
yeah, the irony,
But boy, you're wrong.
yeah,
How?
the of Lovecraftian. But yeah, I love his name. But yeah, I mentioned like what can you say about like the way he writes in general, like his prose, like so like the
It's,
first time you've seen it, yeah.
yeah. His style is really it's not as dark uh as Edgar Allan Poe, which we're also familiar with, but it carries that heavy feeling when you read, and also his descriptions uh of the events is kind of eerie, very eerie,
Mm,
and more like foreboding of what what was about to happen. And yeah, his style with these cosmic horrors, there's you don't really like when we read or watch other horror genre,
mm,
they usually involve lots of violence, like gore and like that stuff. But in here, it's just strange
there,
things happening
there
more. more
and there's no
bordering on the
there's
psychological
no
side.
yeah also there's no picture that you can like you can blame, right? There's nothing concrete that you can
Yeah,
blame, like if it's like zombie or ghost or vampire, like
monster.
it is this guy that's responsible for everything. That's
Yeah,
the thing that is foreboding here, is that you can't even, and in fact the way he describes the color, right? Like he
yeah,
always,
the
I
color.
think, yeah, Lovecraft, even if you read this other stuff, it's one of the things I've noticed is Lovecraft, he's so fond of it's unlike anything you've ever seen, like color, right? But it's something you haven't it's something like that. He loves using that, some sort of exaggeration
Yeah,
something that's unknown. Yeah. So it's like you don't so it's almost like, I think we've mentioned it before, but it's almost like the feeling of horror that you get from something like a Silent Hill, right? Like where
correct.
it's
Correct.
it's the atmosphere, or
It's
well,
the
Silent Hill
atmosphere.
Silent Hill of course has their overt monsters, but yeah,
Yeah.
in Lovecraft, well, this particular story that does not, but in others, the Call of Cthulhu, there's an entity, but still, it's still the way he describes things. Yeah, it's unknown. In here, you can't even attribute it. That's why I haven't seen any of the films that I've maybe I'm gonna, after this, I'm gonna check out that Nicolas Cage one, the Color, out of space. Yeah,
I think
where
the Nicolas Cage is very graphic.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Okay, yeah. But then I think they're missing the point then, because yeah, the point of a Lovecraftian, well, in particular, this particular story, I think the reason why H.P. Lovecraft himself considers it his favorite personal short story is because it really encapsulates what he hated about the horror narrative during that era. Where there's a specific concrete thing that you can be scared about, but I think he showed that even something unknown, even something that's you don't even know what it is, but it's there that you can't describe. It can be equally horrifying.
yeah,
Yeah, that's yeah.
and
But I
sometimes
think
that's what's
yeah,
more frightening. Something that you can
yeah,
see or feel.
exactly, yes. And in fact, I think yeah, I love the, how do you say this, the lineage, because Stephen King himself, that we discussed his short story last Book Lovers Club Volume 3. He cites Lovecraft as one of his influences, which I think you can see even Junji Ito himself writes
Mm-hmm.
Lovecraft as one of his influences. Like when if you read the bio of Junji Ito, he has like a bunch of Japanese manga horror authors like Kazu Umez or these people, but then he writes a Western influence, which is of course H.P. Lovecraft. Something that you can see in his works, like Uzumaki, for example, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't really you've read Uzumaki, Franz, right? Uh,
Not yet.
oh, then in one of our future, yeah, we have to. That's also a classic cosmic horror stuff.
Mm.
Junji Ito, and I think yeah he got it from H.P. Lovecraft. But I was mentioning that because H.P. Lovecraft, when asked of his influences, so he mentioned that when he was growing up, his grandmother would read him some of the Gothic tales, but he really loved the Edgar Allan Poe. Like he says that it was like Edgar Allan Poe is one of his influences, and in fact not in the Color of Space, but if you read something like the Call of Cthulhu, he mentions Edgar Allan Poe there himself. So he would write something like, it's more grotesque than whatever Edgar Allan Poe can imagine, or something like that. Yeah, he uses, so you can really tell that okay, so his benchmark for grotesque during that time was Edgar Allan Poe. Then he says, it's even worse. Imagine something worse than that. Yeah, but I would
Mm.
I should say, France, like I find, I don't know, maybe it's common during those era, but I think he could have, like, reading this, and then of course the Call of Cthulhu, I think there are places where he could have condensed his narrative. I don't know, what do you think? Like while I was reading it, I find that it dragged on a little bit, or did you feel that way, or that's just me? Because while I was reading, I don't know, maybe it's just bias, because while I was reading it, I was waiting for stuff to happen, right? Okay, but remember last time
Yeah.
I told you I was still halfway. I still don't get, like, why. So maybe I was waiting for stuff to ramp up, but did you have the same feeling that it was like a bit, I don't know?
And no, it's I think that's really his style how he he writes his brand of horror.
Mm.
Because yeah, we think that I think that when it heightens the suspense when there's a when
Mm.
when you're expecting something to happen but it doesn't, so you'd be
Yeah.
more watching around like, oh, where's this gonna happen, where's this
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah,
happen,
yeah.
so you would pay more attention to the story because you'd be um because you were expecting it, for example, at this
Mm.
point of the story, but when it doesn't happen, so you'd be more on your more attentive to the story, so that you would say, you would pull me again, I know it is it will
Yeah,
come
yeah,
down,
yeah.
because that's I think,
You're looking out for stuff. Yeah.
yeah, because yeah, I think that's there for me, there are different types of people who watch or read horror, because
Mm.
uh for me, some they just want to experience it, they don't really uh they don't really want to guess or
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
guess how it happens, but
They just want
me,
the ride.
yeah, they just go along with the ride, but me,
Yeah.
I subconsciously can't help but try to predict what happens next. So
Mm.
in but in this story, I didn't do that. I went along for the ride, compared to, because in other horror stories, it's very evident, so
Yeah.
I think
Like in
that's,
the jaunt, for example, right? Like you knew
yeah,
something was up. Yeah, yeah.
like that. But in here, in with the color of space, I just went along with the ride, and I wasn't really impatient when it was about
Mm.
to happen, and just went for it. And um doing that, it made me really feel the atmosphere more, like uh how would it feel to have someone uh going mad,
Mhm.
because during that time I don't think there would be psychologists that would help people with mental issues, so
Yep.
you'd have no choice but to keep to keep your family member in there. And yeah, I think this is also you've seen, I forgot the title. What's the Ilonggo term for aswang again?
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I remember that indie film.
yeah, that indie film.
Let me search it very quickly. But I've seen that. I know what you mean. Yeah, I think yeah. Here, Young Gao. Like
Yang
there's
Gao, yeah.
Joel Torre, right? Joel Torre was there.
Yeah, Joel Torre. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was I was
I know what you mean. Yeah, Young Gao.
I
Yes.
was trying to empathize with Nahom there. Then I remembered Yang Gao. So Yang Gao for us, that would be a more familiar experience, right? Because we're familiar with the Aswang story. So
Mm, yes, yes, yes.
I was trying to empathize with Nahom there, that having mad your wives and children going mad, how would it feel? And
Mm,
then there's weird shit happening around you, so that really heightened the tension and the suspense there of what Lovecraft would pull out from it, because uh I think the only things I'm familiar with Lovecraft are Cthulhu and
the
the old
Cthulhu.
god
Yes,
stuff,
yes,
the
yes, yes.
Eldritch cosmic.
The
So
great, the great old ones. Yes.
yeah, I was expecting like a cult to go there and get that that came from space, but no,
Yeah.
something else happened, and that was really one of the parts that I enjoyed in there, especially when during that when many of them came the last time they came, and they
Mm,
witnessed the thing that happened there. And also yeah, the he was also um one thing he also did was he was scattering baits, like he was describing the trees moving
Oh
without
yeah.
the wind.
Yes, without the wind. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was nice. Yes, that was. I
the,
think it happened twice, right? When they were
yeah,
already like Ami and the people, the one that he brought, the police, the constabulary guys, and then
yeah,
even before that, when his family noticed, yeah, that was very nice image. Like
yeah,
no
and
wind, but then the
also
trees are rustling. Yeah,
yeah, and also some of the grass that go that some of the grass that change color
yeah.
to
Also
the
the glow, right? The glow that
the glow.
Ami noticed. Yeah, like if like he said that Nahum doesn't notice it anymore because he's too familiar. But then if you can
Mm,
see it, yeah, like there's like a faint glow or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
but
so
I should say, yeah, like if so, like I read it the first time, it was like that. But when you listen it to, for example, there are a lot of videos in YouTube where people narrate. It works very nicely with a narration, right? With like audiobook and stuff. If you look
yeah,
at like YouTube, if you
at
can't find the written one, there's a lot in YouTube where it's about 1 hour or something, the typical length, the color out of space. It works very nicely if it's like how do you say this, told out loud by some other person.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually before I read it, I listened to an
The
audio.
audio, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I did the second time. Yeah, I read it first and then I thought, like I want someone to read me these Lovecraftian passages. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, let me, yeah, another thing that I noticed, Lance, that I want to bring out, and I think this is very, I don't know why they do this. This is a very familiar writing, how do you say this, writing formula, I guess, during the Victorian era. Even Arthur Conan Doyle with his Sherlock Holmes
Mm-hmm.
original series, he does this a lot. But the idea of I think, yeah, the Call of Cthulhu is did this worse. But I'm talking about nested narrators, where there's a guy, right? Like
Yeah.
when you read it, there's this guy, the surveyor or the lawyer who wants to do land, like, something's weird, what happens, you ask this guy, and then this guy is now telling the story, narrating it from. And
This
yeah,
is
sometimes it's too nested, you forget who's talking anymore when
yeah.
it's using the I persona, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
when I first listened, I even forgot about that narrator.
exactly, right. You forget about the lawyer because I don't know why, but it's like a very, like, that's not just here. The Call of Cthulhu, it's even multi, like, you have this guy, he went to this his uncle has, written manuscripts, and then in that manuscript he tells a guy that will tell about this. Like I don't know why, maybe it's embedded in that Victorian era, but like they don't, why can't it be, like in your face that this character, okay, is that you're telling it from its point of view. It's always, someone narrating it. I don't know, maybe it's how do you say this, maybe it's a mark of their era, I guess. But if you work like I said, even Sherlock Holmes does that a lot, like they will narrate, like Sherlock Holmes, they will just be sitting, ah Watson, have you heard about this case that I had before? So, oh really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about that. Can you tell me? Okay. Then he will tell. It's very weird. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? Like modern era storytelling, they don't do that, right? Like they don't have nested narrators.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe like maybe that's also why I don't know, but it sometimes it feels maybe it's one of the amplifying factor, that amplifies your, how do you say this, your distance from the unknown or something like that. But yeah, I don't know if it works, if had he written it, I don't know, from the point of view of Ami, for example, or
yeah. I think it would be great if it was like happening. It was like narrated happening real time. I think that would
yeah,
be scarier. But I
yeah,
think I understand with the rest of his works. I think it would work with the Eldritch, like Cthulhu and
the Lovecraft
Fable.
stuff, yeah, yeah,
Versus this one, I think it would have been great if it was like first
Yeah.
person, or it was spoken first person or third person.
Yeah, but I
Like,
think, yeah, it would be fine if, you know, if it's just like this one tale. But yeah, I really, I noticed maybe it's like, maybe it's like the thing during the pulp era, right? Where, because I remember a lot of stories, even the famous ones, like, you know, Edgar Rice Burroughs, like the hero who had this a lot of adventure. uh he wrote like Tarzan and then the Martian stuff or something like this. It's always like
mm,
that, like the hero recalling adventures that already happened, you know, like it's them telling the tale, and then, you know, sometimes it takes you out of the action because you know that, the hero makes it because, you know, he's already sitting there telling the story.
mm,
Yeah, but it's a weird, but I think, yeah, it's like a product of their era, I guess. The how do you
maybe.
say this, the nested narrator. Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I haven't, modern stuff, I haven't seen this, you know, in a short story format where you have a guy tell a story about some other guy experience, you know. I think if it's like a modern era writer, it can be, it can be grounds for rejection, right? If you like write something like that today and then you submit it to a journal, for example, for publication, I think they'll be like, oh, what's this? Well, how come there are a lot of narrators? Yeah, I think it. And yeah, another thing, Francis, I want to talk about is very fascinating. So this is going back to the, like, he published it, and then it's like some people consider it science fiction. uh so in like, I was like, looking at comments, and then I saw this guy, and then I realized it's not a new idea. Someone actually presented it in, there's like a Lovecraftian, turns out there's like a Lovecraft conference where they discuss, like a yearly conference where they discuss, and analyze different works of HP Lovecraft. They actually do it for, also for like, Sherlock Holmes. There's like a Sherlockian organization or something like that, which is
Yeah.
like comprised
What?
of a hardcore fans. Yeah, but in
Mm,
here, there's a guy who gave a paper, and I saw this because there was a person who commented. He said the reason why the color out of space is one of his favorite from H.P. Lovecraft is because uh when you replace the word color, diba, it's the color from out of space, right? He said when you replace the word color with radiation, he said everything works. And so some people think that how do you say this, that this work, because during the time when he wrote this, early 1900s, was also the time we were beginning to understand radiation. But during that time, we didn't know that radiation is bad and it caused all the sickness and stuff like that. But some people think that, and in fact, the symptoms that we get from people, and then the effects, that plants are mutating, animals are like that, and then a meteor from space. People thought that maybe love this is Lovecraft, predicting effects of radiation. So there's a guy who actually discussed that. He said that maybe this is his allegory for radiation effect and radiation poisoning, because in fact during that time I read Franco because I saw this. In fact, during those period, there was this very famous case of the radium girls. It's called, where again during that time they didn't know that radiation can cause sickness, and so you have this women who are working in a factory where they, the clocks where with the, how do you say this, the one that glows in the dark, right?
yeah.
Before, the material that they use for that is radium, and so
Oh,
the radium girls, these women would literally, because they would paint it right with a brush, and
yeah.
then the instruction is so that it will be fine, the painting will be very nice. The instruction is to straighten the tip of the paint with your mouth, so they do this, right, when you paint something small. So they dip it on
Yes.
the radium stuff, and then they do it like that, and then they paint it on the watch, and then eventually they develop all this, like sickness on their
Symptom.
teeth, on their jaw. When they have like tooth extraction, it doesn't recover. Like it was also, it happened like around those period. So I think, yeah, maybe I don't know what you think about that. Like, do you think, because I think, yeah, Lovecraft has some sci-fi story, and I've read somewhere that he is himself, into science. He reads science stuff. So I don't know if there's some truth to
Mhm.
that. But what do you think, yeah, about that, comparison of yeah,
Yeah, I think
but
that is
yeah,
possible because um yeah, even though we're aware of radiation, but we can't
Mm,
really detect it ourselves. So yeah,
yes.
it may also have connected to how his style of writing on the horrors, unseen,
Yeah.
unfelt horrors that he wrote. Yeah, so yeah, that may be possible, but
Yeah. This is a good. Yeah. But in his
we
lifetime, he did
only
not say.
know.
Yeah. He didn't say that. Like outright that it's about radiation and stuff. But with that interpretation, some people consider it as like the first eco terror or ecological. Like things like that, right? Where it's not really horror, but the things that nature can do to you, right? So it's
Mhm.
some people read it like that, which I thought was very fascinating. So if you think of it as like radiation, then yeah, maybe you can have that interpretation as well, which
Yeah,
is
but
very
I
nice.
think it would it would take out the if we
Take,
interpret this radiation,
yeah,
it
it takes
wouldn't
out
be.
the horror.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
takes out the horror element
yeah.
because yeah, you'd need a different setting for radiation horror story.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's a nice like interpretation, right? Like, yeah, you can think of it that way. Like you read it and it does sound like radiation poisoning. But I think yeah, one of the last things I want to I saw this in the comment. He said H.P. Lovecraft looks like Mark Zuckerberg on
Yeah,
Facebook.
it's
Oh my
it's
god,
uncanny.
they're right.
Maybe it's a descendant of H.P. Lovecraft.
I know, yeah, that was funny. I said, oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah.
It's
But I think
uncanny.
friends, I think yeah, we have like an appointment like around 5:45. So I think yeah, maybe we can wrap it up. But
Yep.
I thought maybe in the future we read he has a lot of
Yeah.
fiction HP Lovecraft. So maybe if we've exhausted a lot of authors, we can always go back to this guy.
Can
But any last words about like the color out of space or Lovecraft in general?
yeah. It's one of the one of great good horrors I've enjoyed, and yeah, I like things like this where I can easily predict what will happen
Yeah,
immediately. So it's really great, and yeah, we'll discuss his
yeah.
being a racist next time when we
Yeah, I
this.
know. He has some other like it's not very evident in the color out of space. Like I didn't see it in there, but if
Yeah,
you read like
exactly.
Call of Cthulhu or other stuff like that, you really see that he has a thing with people that are not white. Like even Philippines is starring in the Call of Cthulhu. It's very funny, right? I was reading like, oh,
What? Really?
Philippines was mentioned there. Yeah,
What the
they said
fuck?
the natives from the Philippines. It was so funny. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, but yeah, I think yeah, that's a nice discussion about separating the art from the artist, or should we really do that? We can talk about that next time. But I think yeah. So next well this month we said, France, that we'll be discussing the other stories, right, of
Yeah.
uh Ted Chiang, right, the one who did the. So we will be focusing on stories of your life. It's a very nice exercise because I read this before, but like when I look at the title, some I can still remember, but some I can't. What was it about? So I have to reread it. Almost done with it. So we'll be discussing. If you want, to come along with us, we'll be discussing one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories. I think one of them is very short, but yeah, 7. So this will be like the longest one that we've had so far. But I'm thinking, France. So that's already for that July, right? So our next horror will be so July is sci-fi. So August is fantasy, right? So September will be our next horror, right?
Yeah.
Towards the end of September. So I'm thinking, France. This I'm very curious. This is a novel, but it's fairly short. It's 280 pages. It's fairly new. I haven't read it, but I heard a lot of good things about it. It's called The Fisherman by John Langan.
Mm.
You know how I've heard about this. I've been playing a game called the Dredge in the
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch. You heard of this game, Dredge? It's
I watch it. I watch one of my favorite streamers play it.
the indie game, right, with the boat.
Yeah, that both.
Exactly,
Where
the one that
there
where
are
he so
also Cthulhu like
yeah.
monsters.
So the funny thing is, so you've heard about this, implosion incident, right? The submersible,
The
the one that went to the
Titan.
Titanic. Yeah. The funny thing is that before that incident, I've been reading a lot about the abyssal zone, the Hadal zone,
Yeah.
because of that game. I was actually
Yeah.
like, oh, that's creepy, man, at the very deep. And then this thing happened. And then when you look at YouTube, all the things that you see are about the scary things about the deep. But the fun thing is, I've been watching those before that incident because of the game Dredge. So the thing, Franz, is I saw this recommendation in the Dredge Reddit. They said if you like Dredge, the video game, think of this as Dredge written in a novel. And they said it's very good.
Ooh.
It's John Langan. You see the background, right? It's
Yeah.
called The Fisherman. So now I got very curious. So it's basically like something like that, with like about a fisherman but with Cthulhu mythos. They said it's really very good. It's so
Yeah.
it's published 2016. So it's fairly new. The Fisherman by John Langan. So you look at the first chapter. How fishing saved my life. Yeah, don't call me Abraham, call me Abe. So I'm pretty curious about this. So what do you say? Maybe we can read this for September. I think yeah, we can do that, right? Today is still the beginning of July. So we have like the rest of July to finish like the rest of the stories with Ted Chiang. But uh
Or
I,
what
I'm,
if
I'm
what if we we put the horror on November?
that's also nice. Yeah, maybe we can let's think about, or this is wait, August, September, October, but it's a bit far though. Let me see.
Yeah. Or we can just
November is
do
no.
horror
I think
again.
no, France. I was thinking November will still be horror, but not. It will be different, not this, because December's gonna be fantasy, right? So they're gonna
Yeah.
swap, because typically
Yeah.
horror is at the end, right, of the
Yes.
cycle. But then, so supposedly December is supposedly horror as well, but we should put it on November,
Yeah, we
and
can
then
stop.
December will be fantasy. But so this will be like the horror before that November one, the Fisherman. So how
Yeah.
this what you say? Because
Yeah.
yeah, I want to read this.
I
It's
like
September.
yeah, I like the Dredge, so I think
Yeah, you're right. The premise, right? A good thing you know about the Dredge. I thought like I was the only one. I was like, I saw the trailer. It was very good. Like at first, I thought it was boring. Okay, the fisherman, then fishing, and then I saw like it's very
yeah,
freaky. It's like
that's what you
one
think
of
first time
like
playing it.
exactly, it's like one of the I'm playing my Nintendo Switch, right? It's like
Yeah.
one of the few things that got me so scared with my Nintendo Switch was that game. I was like, there's like this open lagoon that was very deep, right? I was already,
Yeah.
oh, this looks very nice. And then the acting did that. Oh my god, bro! I was like, what the it was insane. Like this game's very good. And then this is supposed to be the novel form. So I think I don't know. Maybe can you find, if you can't find this online, just let me know. This is like I found this in an EPUB format. So this complete novel. So if you can't find the copy, just let me know. I have this. I just found this online, the copy. So it's a John Langan. So it's nice because this guy is unknown to me, right? He's not one of the usual names you see
Yeah.
when you
It's
talk
not
about horror, but it turns out he does write some good horror stuff. He even has some horror anthology of short fiction, but this is a novel. So I'm excited to read this because it sold me when they said this is basically Dredge but on a fiction novel format. So I'm like, oh, I love that game. So we should read this. Okay. So
yeah, I think I
uh
found a copy.
you found a copy. Okay,
Download
then that's
file.
good. So this is gonna be the I don't know if this is longer or the Ted Chiang. I think Ted Chiang might even be longer than this because this is only 280 pages. So I think that's doable. September, right? So I'm pretty excited because people praise this novel. So yeah, that's gonna be, so again, if you want to read some horror stuff, this gonna be we're gonna be discussing it in September, and then another one on November. But yeah, this is the second to the last horror for 2023. Okay,
Yeah, I
and I
found the
think
copy online.
okay, that's good. Yeah, then I think yeah we should start reading this. So with that, France, yeah, I think yeah we have to be somewhere. I didn't know my wife just messaged me. So
Yeah.
with that, I think yeah we end the how do you say this? This is the sixth, right? edition of Book Lovers Club. So again, today's July, but this is the June 2023 version of Book Lovers Club. So next week, July will be sci-fi. I think again we're gonna be using Google Meet instead of Zoom, but I think we can figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, thanks, Franz. So maybe next time we should read another H.P. Lovecraft,
Yeah.
and then maybe some Edgar Allan Poe as well. But yeah, so next time for July, so maybe Francis and I are gonna be discussing maybe towards the end of July, perhaps last week of July, I think, last
Yep.
weekend of July. All right. So with that, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks Franz for the. We're done with it's very quick. We're now 6 episodes. We're now in the first half of the year. Okay, so I'm looking forward to the second half of 2020.
Yeah. More
Okay.
books. to read.
Yes, more books, and this guy,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome.
Dredge. Yeah.
Dredge is
Right.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Franz. I'm gonna upload this
Yeah.
and then thank you. So let me end the recording in 3, 2, 1. Stop.